Hi friends, it's Gwen. Welcome back to my channel. I'm here to review The Mime Order by Samantha Shannon, and before I do that, I probably need to talk a little bit about The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. This is an adult fantasy novel about Paige Mahoney, who works in underground London, and she gets kidnapped and drugged and taken to Oxford. Oxford is this mysterious hidden city that's been hidden for 200 years. There's this other race or these other beings that live there, and they kidnap clairvoyants every 10 years, every bone season, and they use them for different purposes. One of them is to fight these monsters, but it's not very clear on why they keep doing this, and I'm sure as the series continues, I will get to learn more about that. I want to jump into the characters because that's probably one of my favorite things about this book. I really loved the characters, specifically Paige, the warden, and Jackson. The beginning book really talks about Paige and her underground position with Jackson and her other people in her little circle. But then as she gets kidnapped and drugged, that's where she goes to Oxford. There was lots of world building in this. Of course, we had to get to know the gritty and criminal world of London. And then we really got to know Oxford as this hidden city. And even though we didn't get to see a lot of it, or we really didn't understand a lot of it, you really did get to see like the city part and like the outskirts, kind of like the slum area. And I thought that was very interesting. The world building was so rich and so vivid. I really understood the world and how it looked and how it felt. The majority of the plot takes place after Paige is kidnapped and drugged and taken to Oxford. It talks about her training. It talks about her purpose, what she can do, expanding her abilities. But overall, the story arc of The Bone Season was pretty much pitch perfect. It just was like the perfect story arc. Started off a little slow. You're building, introducing you to the characters and the world. You hit the high point. You start going back down. I don't know. It was just like the perfect story arc and character arcs. There were a couple of conflicts within the story. First, you're trying to find out like who are these people that, you know, basically kidnap these clairvoyants every 10 years. What is the purpose? Who are they? Why are they here? What are they doing? And then you're also trying to find out if Paige is ever going to get back to London and her friends there. So that's really what's driving the story forward, but there's other mystery elements woven in as well. Since there were so many conflicts, there are a few resolutions, and I thought it was just a perfect ending to this book, but it definitely drives you to want to read the other books in the series. Currently, there is only the Mime Order out, but then the Rising Song, something. But the third book does come out this March, I believe, and I'm really looking forward to that. I'm currently reading the Mime Order because I enjoyed this so much. So you're trying to find out what's going to happen next. Will such and such continue? There's so many things driving you to pick up the rest of the books in the series. So I really enjoyed this and I gave it 5 stars. What I will say about this review is if you have already read The Bone Season, then you can go ahead and continue watching this second portion for the Mime Order, but unfortunately, since it is the second book in the series, if you have not read The Bone Season yet, you can listen to that portion of the review. I hope you enjoyed that, but definitely don't watch the rest because I'm going to be talking about non-spoilery bits from this, but the beginning part of this spoils the end of this book. If you have read The Bone Season and you're wondering about my thoughts about the Mime Order, if you should continue in the series, that's what this video is truly about. So The Mime Order by Samantha Shannon is of course the second book in her high fantasy adult fiction novel. And it basically picks up right where The Bone Season left off. And since The Bone Season left off on kind of like a cliffhanger, like kind of high action, heart pumping, it kind of led right into the second book with that. So it's quite an action-packed start, which was great because these are longer novels. They are more detailed. They can get a little complicated. There's a lot going on. So to have that action right in the beginning, it really sucks you right in. After that, things do slow down quite a bit, and in other novels, when things slow down, it tends to get boring, but in the Mime order, you're just really getting to know the world even better, the characters even more, and the relationships between the characters even more. After reading the Bone Season, there were a few characters that I wanted to know more about, and I definitely got to know more of the characters in this second book. Specifically Jackson. He was just barely in the first book because Paige really didn't spend a lot of time in Scion, but when she was taken to Oxford, we got to know a little bit about the warden. So now she's back in London with Jackson and the Seven Seals, and you're just getting to know all the Seven Seals a little bit better. There is LGBTQ representation in this series. You're definitely getting to know Jackson more, and you get to know him maybe a little bit too well, and you're kind of shocked by some of the things that happen, but he also still remains a little bit of a mystery. He has like this mysterious air about him. He's a very intense and complicated character, but I think that's what I love about him. Paige is back working for Jackson, so we get to see what Paige's job actually consists of. It's briefly mentioned and discussed in the first book, but we get to actually see her doing jobs for Jackson. I think Paige as a narrator is a perfect person to have narrating the story because she's very smart, she's very strong-willed, she's like a stand-up for the people type person, but she's not perfect. She's not that special little snowflake. She has her faults, she's very emotional and flawed, but she's brave. The magic system of this series is very in-depth. It has several charts in the first book and in the second book that tell you all about the different levels and the different casts of types of magic, and I think that's very beneficial to have. I thought there's a glossary, there's lists of names, and I think it just really helps to for a quick reference. But there's a certain scene in this where all of that kind of comes into play, and you get to see the magic system and how it works and the abilities of people even more. Writing, it does have faster, more action-packed scenes, and it does have those slower type moments. And while some people may be bored by those slower moments, take a minute to soak in the world and the characters, and just, it's kind of like reading between the lines. I do think that it drags maybe a little bit too much because you're at the end of the Bone Season, it's kind of high action-packed and you're thrown right into that in the Mime order, but then it slows down and it stays slow for a very long time. I think unnecessarily so. I understand what Samantha Shannon was doing during those moments, developing the characters, developing the world, explaining the magic, layering the mystery, and just all of the good stuff that great books need. But then the action is the last few chapters, and it's so action-packed and so much happens. I just wish that maybe it was spread out a little bit more. But there's a lot of foreshadowing, and I just think it's so good. And I still can't wait to revisit some of my favorite characters in the next book. Characters are definitely some of my favorites. Jackson, Paige, and the Warden will remain some of my favorites in this series, I believe. They're definitely taking different paths than I thought they would, and I think that's going to be really cool in the third book to see what happens next. Basically, the plot is that Paige has returned to London. She returns for working for Jackson, and kind of where does she go from here, because at the end of the Bone Season she was kind of like the voice of this hidden city, like these people are being captured and taken to this hidden city. It's a real thing. There's these beings and they're, kidnapping us, and she wants to, spread the word so that no other clairvoyants get kidnapped. So she's trying to be that person, but Jackson's kind of reining her in, that's not really our place. We're safe. We're doing our thing. But Paige is fighting that. So it's pretty interesting. There are other conflicts that introduce themselves in this book, quite a few actually, but those would be spoilers. And the resolutions in this book, I will just say that the ending of this book was so interesting. It was very high action packed. You always get a sense of the title of the book and everything. You just it kind of all lays itself out for you, so it's very interesting, and characters do things you're not expecting them to do, and different things happen. So the end of this book, of course, leaves you with that like shocking moment at the end. Not really a cliffhanger per se, but just like, I want to continue in the series. So they always keep you super intrigued. They're very well written. I thought I did run across a few grammatical errors, which was kind of weird. I didn't know if it was just the writing or if it was just me not reading it right, but I would read them, like the sentences that I ran across. I think there were like 2 that I read a couple of times and I was like, am I reading that right? Maybe it's just too late at night or something like that. But I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars and I will definitely be continuing in the series. So I hope you've enjoyed this kind of discussion more than a review really per se, but I hope you've enjoyed this review discussion of The Bone Season and The Mime Order by Miss Samantha Shannon, and that you are ready for book 3 when it comes out this March. I am definitely looking forward to it, and I will read it and hopefully report back to you. But that's all I have for you today. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you again in my next video. Bye!